What is going on, everybody? BobbyFi back with my man Eric Sheets-Haber, and we are going to be talking about a little baseball. I had a nice night last night. I finished second and 11th in the ball four. I did well in basketball. I got lucky with Mania getting the complete game at the end, which is the second time we've got the A's complete game guy, complete game shutout in the last week. So probably something to keep an eye on, which is odd because they actually have a really good bullpen, but I think they do want to give these, especially their decent pitchers, a chance every time they will. So gives us an idea that maybe these guys have a little bit longer of a leash than some of the other even superstar pitchers, because they've made a point with over 100 pitches twice to let them pitch the ninth. Anyway,
what I could do, I could pull up my screen because my screen can have yours on it.
Okay, you can show my. I'll do it real quick. I'll do it real quick.
Okay.
Just because I want to just show a couple things real quick because it was stuff we talked about on air in the live before lock, and we just did back and forth, and everybody was no trolls. It was all nice. Everybody was great, and a lot of nice things being said. We talked about Colorado. I talked about how they're going to be significantly underowned for the slate. It's not like they went completely off or that they were the best stack. Obviously, the Dodgers were the nuts, and I didn't have the Dodgers in this particular lineup. I had the Dodgers in about 20%, I would say, of stacks. And I didn't have as much Bellinger as I would have liked because the Dodgers are tough that way because they have enough power and everything. You don't know who to spend for. Anyway, Manoah got me nothing. He struggled there in the fourth, and they didn't even want to let him bother with it. The DJ Stuart thing, we talked about that too, 2,600, and it just didn't make sense. Like if he actually was much higher owned. I think he was like 4% or 3% in the other ones that weren't the 254 max, because that's usually where you get the best players or whatever. But he was low owned, and again, obviously it's great when you get your guys low owned guys that hit home runs. I played him with Larnach in this lineup because they're both I did double savings, and then I played Tapia, who I knew no one was going to play just because of the price, and Fuentes as well at third base. Look, it's Colorado and Colorado, guys. We don't need to overthink cheap guys against lousy pitchers like Jordan Lyles. And it actually could have, and he pitched actually pretty well for the most part, but that's what ended up working out for me. Turner was a last minute add-on. This is my solid lineup. My other solid one, unfortunately, also with Manoah. But the Braves just kept getting the runners on, didn't quite get there, and I didn't get my Acuna anything. But I had DJ Stewart in that lineup as well. You can see I did pretty much what we talked about, and it's great to have another good results day. It would have been nice to get that third win, the third consecutive win in a week. But actually, I realized it was the Thursdays that I'd won before, so that means I have to win a tournament today. Anyway, it was fun. I'm glad. I felt good to have another nice night. Hopefully, it was good for you guys as well. And let's get to some stuff today. Sheets, any sort of
yeah. So I just my night last night. So I went to the Knicks game last night, which was crazy. It wasn't so long ago that like we weren't even allowed to leave the house at all, and now it's apparently back. So that was a lot of fun. DFS wise, I played two lineups. One of them had three guys I think that didn't play. One had two guys that didn't play. I just forgot to check my lineups. I'm human. That's what happens. But I would like to take a little bit of and I woke up this morning to find out that Jason Day, who had 50% of my lineups, withdrew after lock, which is always nice. So DFS has been a little shaky for me the last 24 hours. But I do want to do a little bit of a victory lap, not a victory lap, but just something you guys should always keep in mind. And I talk about this. It goes back to my days of horse racing and in the stock market, all this stuff. And I pound on this every single time it happens. Now, I don't even know if it would have made a difference. Just be careful playing teams, players off of just ridiculous ceiling performances, okay? It's just, forget even the recency bias that's going to go along with them. Just players and people just tend to bounce. They tend to do whatever. And I talked about this with respect to Manoah yesterday, that he came off. And the way I came was really weird. You were talking about I don't want to play McClanahan because you just don't go into Yankee Stadium and freaking have a good start. And I said, okay, let's look at this guy Manoah. Oh my God, he went into Yankee Stadium off of nowhere, right? And he had a tremendous first start. If anything, that's like the easiest fade in the world, right? I'm not saying it's always that easy, but just be careful in general about playing guys, regardless of their spot, off of ceiling performances. They're human beings, and God knows how much the guy celebrates or gets too egotistical or whatever it is. It's just be careful about that.
Yeah, I hear you. I think it's hard to say with the young guys, but if you would have told me he was going to be 70% owned before the thing, I'm not doing
Well,
that.
that's something else.
I was thinking he would be in the 30 to 40% range, which I was willing to be fine on because I didn't like the other pitching. But I mean, the truth is, it's kind of a miracle. I had better lineups than the lineup that finished second, but that was, my
Yeah.
4 max.
Hey, could you come get a little closer to the mic? I think.
Yeah. Sorry about that. But
All
anyway,
right, you ready to go after today's main slate?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think what you said is entirely true about all sports except for the NBA and baseball. NBA and baseball are different to me. I like hot hitters in baseball, and NBA guys going off tends to be a trend for a reason. But like if it was everything the same and the guy just happened to make 10 threes, yeah, that would be right. But if it was a guy who goes off because 2 guys are missing from the lineup, he's probably going to go off again the next game. It's not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If it worked the first time. Anyway, let's jump into it. Why don't you pull your screen up and we will go game by game here.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, for those that were able to get into the early slate today, I imagine that Garrett Cole's going to be 372% owned, and he is against the freaking Cole killers. I mean,
Yeah.
Tampa's rough against him, and there's also, by the way, there's sneaky little thunderstorm risk around here. By the way. It's not exactly clear where it's going to be, when it's going to be, but that's certainly in there. But I have 100%. Anyway,
I do too. I actually have one lineup that doesn't have him in it,
okay.
And in that lineup I have the Tampa hitting, but that's just literally for the interest of being different. And I think that there's not really a lot of other options. But anyway, we can move on to today.
Okay, so Miami, Pittsburgh, I see a little cloud there. I don't know if there's actual rain concerns there, but just all well and good. I don't have too much of an interest in the game anyway, so I'm not too worried about it. I didn't have too much interest in either of these pitchers. And you know what? I actually do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pittsburgh is like my 7th best hitting team relative to value, which means I'm probably not going to play them. But just to kind of throw it out there, just to give a little plug again, if you guys are not starting to check out, by the way, TrueDFS.com yet, our site, you should really get over there right away. It's actually starting to look visibly passable, where you could actually go in there and get the information that you need. And we're going to start, really, I'm going to start, instead of putting stuff on Discord, just really focusing on putting it into the chat, into the site, just refer you guys there. But it's really, when we talk about, I don't want to do this into a plug too much, but the whole concept is transparency, and basically everything that I do, I base on the stuff that I kind of put up there. You know what I mean? And we'll talk more about that. But in any case, Pittsburgh would be like my 7th favorite stack, but that's really the only interest I have in this game.
Yeah, this game it's like the only game with any weather concern, just to keep that in mind. I'm not. Let me come back to this one in a second, because I do want to, I wanted to see a little bit more about the weather, and I guess that's sort of how I feel too right now. We can move on. I wanted to try and it's a weird small slate, and I kind of thought there was some opportunities to get different with some guys, but just with the weather, not even the concerns about the game, just like it's kind of ugly and doesn't look like it's good hitting weather. So I guess we can move on. I don't really think I need to play either of these pitchers.
All right, you want to tackle the next game first?
I'm going to throw out that if not for if the weather does look completely good to go, I might take a shot with Tyler Anderson, and I would consider also taking a shot with like an Adam Duvall or Garrett Cooper. But that's the only thing I wanted to say, just because I did have it noted to keep an eye on that. So Arizona, Milwaukee, I don't think I'm going to be playing any pitcher in this game. I need to do a little more research on the Duplantier kid. The projections, I look at a couple different projections this morning, and they actually like him a lot. And I'm trying to figure out exactly what I'm missing. I understand it's a good matchup, but that's not where I'm at personally. I love, like probably many will, I'm a very big fan of I'm a very big fan of Milwaukee today. Lineup's getting healthier. Good matchup, obviously, playing at home. Scored a bunch of runs. I think Yelich is one of the better outfield plays of the day. I love Colton Wong and Avisail Garcia. Those are the way I would rank them. And I will always mix in a little cheap Travis Shaw, and Daniel Vogelbach is going to stand out as a great point per dollar play as well.
Currently for me, these are the top 2 stacks on the board for me.
Oh, you're into the Arizona stuff. Okay, talk about it.
Yeah, currently they're based on value and everything like that. These are the 2 top stacks on the board for me. Actually, Milwaukee's clearing away the top one with Arizona tied with another team we'll get to later. I don't know why we keep doing this. It's like, what are we really benefiting? People are saying, "Ooh, hang in there. We'll tell you about it later." I should just say it, but I guess that's just part of doing business nowadays. You guys have to stay to the end, or maybe not the end. I don't even know where that game is. We'll get there. Who's my second favorite? But I do like both these teams a lot. Arizona, I'll throw in the usual suspects. You got Christian, Ketel Marte, Ahmed, catcher is good. Carson Kelly, Christian Walker, and the fast guy, the Castro. So and Escobar, obviously. So these are. I'm hoping for a good hitter's umpire, and the Milwaukee bandbox to be a bandbox today. I don't know that this is my. This will be my favorite game. Again, this does not factor in ownership quite yet. So I imagine that these guys will all be pretty healthy owned. But that's where I stand right now.
I mean, I like what you're. I like the idea about the Arizona side. It's funny because I don't think I would want to fully stack them. It's weird because I actually considered Brett Anderson at one point today. Just the price is a little bit more than I want to pay, but I don't know about fully stacking them for me. But I'm open to it. I more thought of them. I didn't even actually. I mean, I don't know. It does seem like a little bit better of a spot. And I didn't realize the price on Christian Walker was 3.3K. So I do think that's interesting, and I love the Ketel Marte idea. I'm curious where they end up ownership wise. But yeah, I definitely could see your point on the Arizona side here.
Okay. You want to move on?
Yeah. Why don't you start off this game?
Yeah. So hey, I get to start with the best pitcher. All right, that's good.
Yeah.
So for me, well, I shouldn't say that. For me, it's it's probably a double pay up for pitchers day for me, and Lance Lynn is going to be one of them. That's pretty much all I have to say about that. With respect to the hitting, I don't know. I was wondering if I was going to get some Chicago, but no. I remember Casey Mize, as I mentioned before, he's got a little bit of talent. But I don't think I'm going to play him. But I think he's just good enough that I'm not going to play the White Sox either. So that's where I'm at. I'm at basically Lance Lynn and nothing else in this game.
Yeah. So I'm very interested in this game. This game has the best hitting weather by a good amount on the slate.
Okay.
The umpire information later. The best. Okay, so the biggest jump in hitting weather, not necessarily the best hitter's park, just the best jump for where it normally would be.
What do you mean by that? The best jump in?
Yeah, I'm comparing. You're just comparing its previous games in this exact environment.
Okay.
So I love. I think Casey Mize is solid. I don't want to get mistaken about this. I think he'll have a fine career. I think he's a guy who's going to give up a lot of home runs. I think he's going to keep. If he gets wild at all, he's going to be really in trouble. But for the most part, he's done a better job, I say this year, of keeping his walks down a little bit, especially lately. But I just feel like this lineup, I have a ton of interest in the White Sox. And, you put the hitting weather, Casey Mize, and then again, I always mention this, but the horrible Detroit bullpen, which you get for 3 to 5 or 6 innings if things go right.
How are you going to get these guys in, though? These are so expensive.
They're expensive, and that's why I think people aren't going to play them as much as they maybe could.
Are people going to play Nick Madrigal at 5,200?
Nobody's playing Nick Madrigal, but I don't want to play him either. I'm not going to take him who once hit a home run as chalk and literally never has hit another one.
He sure did.
How does that happen, by the way?
He definitely deserves to be 200 more than Tim Anderson. What do you think?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, there you go. Of course. Andrew Vaughn. So the way I would prioritize these guys is probably Vaughn, number one. I don't know. If he bats 7th, maybe not. But Vaughn, actually, it's always going to be Abreu, but he's expensive. Moncada's been great lately. Anderson. They're all. I love the stack Mercedes. It's hard to find them as one-offs because you'll obviously have to try and create a build where you can get in this kind of these kind of guys. So, and look, we don't know how the lineup shakes out yet. Jake Lamb also is another cheap option here. So all these guys are like, they're all similar, but I don't know, other than maybe like an Abreu or Mercedes, maybe in a certain build, or I guess Tim Anderson would be the most likely one-off, but it's more of a stack thing for me. And I want to try to attack. The thing with Mize is that even though he's good, like, again, he does have that combustibility. I'm not going to just forget about, some of the weaknesses he's had throughout his career, because he's been off to a good start this year. And even in that good start, he's given up home runs and a lot of hard contact still. The strikeouts are good. Great. If the umpire breaks the certain way, I'll be really heavy on the White Sox. No matter what, I'm going to have interest in them as one of my stacks, partially to do just even the great hitting conditions.
I'm going to predict that you will, by the time you get to lock, you will not be able to find a way to stack the White Sox.
I will make you $1 million bet that I can. And
you can, but I mean,
if I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. I'm not necessarily going to do it in my biggest buy-in tournament, but I will do it. I promise.
I'm just trying to think of what little league pitchers we're going to be using. And
I mean, for one, I could start with the guy against the Duplantier against Milwaukee at 5
That's like quadruple leverage, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I don't love this, and we're going to talk about it in a minute, but because I think he's kind of done. But I think both pitchers in this game this is the next game, the Minnesota KC game. I think this is a pretty obvious sitting spot where you want to like both teams. I also think that, like, on this weird slate, if you were going to pay down a pitcher, that both these guys are logical. I think people think that Bubic is a lot worse than he is, and just see a lefty and say, we're going to play Minnesota. Just take a look at the fact the guy's given up 1 home run this year, just pitched against this Minnesota team, 6 innings, gave up 1 run and 4 hits in 6 innings. And I'm not saying the same thing will happen. You could also make the counter argument that Minnesota, that now they've seen him 3 times, maybe they have an advantage. And I think that's logical. But I'm just saying that before everybody goes and stacks Minnesota again and gets crushed like they did yesterday, just keep in mind the ownership is going to be through the roof for Minnesota. And Bubic has not been I'm not saying he won't tonight, but he has not been hit really, really hard in a way that you'd want in a winning stack all year long, and including against the same team. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I find myself a little bit more interested in betting on that J-Happ really is struggling, just betting against J-Happ and taking the KC side. But at the same time, I could make not the same argument because he has been hit hard at times this year. But again, another guy who can get through 6 against a pretty weak Royals lineup, although it is actually improved. So I can see arguments for both sides depending on your builds today. And I do have these as 2 of my top 5 stacks, even though
I'm not playing this. I'm not playing the Twins for a cent today. So I don't. If they're
go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not getting to them at all. So I'm not worried too much about that. KC side of it, I'm more interested in. And for me, you start with like the best player in baseball, it's Salvador Perez. I mean, the guy literally hits like 2 home runs every time I play him. So
I play him too. He's always hitting home runs.
Always. He's crazy. And it's so funny with catchers, you either have like Real Muto and Perez, or then like all the way to the bottom, I guess. Actually, there are some others, but I like Perez. I like what's his name? Merrifield's always in play. Santana, Michael Taylor, Dozier. I definitely like Kansas City. They're not like my top stacks or anything like that. As I mentioned, I have another one that's a little grosser that I like more. But they're definitely in that B tier. I have them better. Right now I have them better than. Not this means anything. I have them better than Pittsburgh. I have them better than another team, which we'll get to in a little bit. Yeah, I think Kansas City's in play here. But I'm not worried too much about playing Minnesota.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Minnesota, explosive offense, but if you look at the bottom, I mean, this, first of all, is not entirely the same Minnesota team. There's not Byron Buxton, the lefty killer, and everyone killer actually, in the lineup, who's actually their best hitter. That's the truth at this point. You've got career great hitters like Donaldson and Cruz who haven't been there themselves. But I think Kyle Garlick and Ryan Jeffers, even if you're not playing Minnesota, it's going to make people want to stack them, because Garlick is 2.8 in the outfield and Jeffers, just coming off a big night, is 2K. Both of those guys stand out as extremely good plays as one-offs. And I think it's going to make people start to stack and at least mini stack and throw them in with another guy. One of the Donaldson, Cruz, Kirilloff type of guys. So that's partly why they're going to be so popular. On KC side, I'm with you. I really would prefer the KC side of this game. I'm a little bit probably looking. I don't like to always fully stack this team because you're not getting a ton of power from every spot. But Olivares stands out as a really, really good cheap option in the outfield. I would say that Hunter Dozier, depending on where he is in the lineup, would be a priority play if he's batting fifth or better. And if not, he's just a good play. And I would say that I think Santana, Perez, Merrifield all speak for themselves. But those are the value guys who you mix in my opinion.
So this next game, Cincinnati-St. Louis, it answers the question that I posed to you earlier, I think, that, I mean, if you're going to play the White Sox stack, what kind of Little League pitchers you're going to use? And I think this is probably the answer. Vladimir Gutierrez is 5K. And I think that if you want to, you know, pay up for hitting and stuff like that, I think that this is totally okay at just 5,000. There's probably another guy that will, you know, it's a little more expensive that I have obviously a lot more faith in, but I have no problem with anybody who wants to just play this guy at 5K. I mean, he's probably just good enough. So that I like. And I also do like Cincinnati as kind of a secondary stack as well. So Gutierrez is kind of a cheap pitcher. I give my blessing, although I prefer not to play him. But if you want, you can. And for the Reds, the usual guys. Let me just see. Let me just make sure anybody doesn't stand out here. Yeah, they're okay. You know, Farmer, Suarez, Winker. Who's Gilberto Celestino? I don't know. India, Castellanos already mentioned. So, yeah, that's where I am.
Yeah, I get the Gutierrez thing, so that's what I've got a little like I've got it written in as a little bit. I haven't built my lineups yet, but he's definitely on my list of guys. I want to see how this ump breaks for him. That's a guy who, you know, these young guys. It's a much bigger deal to have an extreme like pitcher's ump for a guy who's just coming up and doesn't pitch, doesn't start, hasn't had one start in his career, or I think that's so. But at the same time, I think you're going to get a weirdly low owned for similar reasons expensive St. Louis stack that you can go to, and they don't have to look. They put up, you know, they can put up runs on the Dodgers' top pitchers, and there's some pop in this lineup. I kind of like this lineup, actually. It's getting a little bit harder to get everybody in because Dylan Carlson's not, you know, 2.5 anymore. He's 3.8. Edman is expensive, or Arenado's expensive. Tyler O'Neill, Goldschmidt. I like all of them. The one that stands out to me, if I was going to play a one-off, would be Goldschmidt. Otherwise, I probably would be looking more at stacking or mini stacking, but really all of those guys are fine. I think that it's just hard to say that they should be priorities individually, but as a stack to try and pick on the kid for, you know, what could happen in a blow-up game with a team with a bad bullpen in Cincinnati, you could really get something out of it. It's interesting how much respect everyone in Vegas is giving to Adam Wainwright. And to be honest, he's been pretty damn good. He's had really like only one or two blow-up starts. One of them was the first game of the season against the Cincinnati team. I have to do some BVP checking, but I'm pretty sure there's some pretty decent numbers against him. However, you have to factor in that Cincinnati is like the ultimate hitter's park, or, you know, outside of Coors in the National League for power. So it's kind of hard. I don't think I'm going to be stacking up or doing anything with Cincinnati today, but I don't mind Jesse Winker as a one-off. I don't mind Suarez as a one-off. I don't mind Castellanos as a one-off. I love actually Naquin as a one-off. He's too cheap. But those are, it's an easy stack to make. People do it against Wainwright all the time. It doesn't work out as often as they'd like. I would say if you're going to do a one-offs or mini stacks with the guys I mentioned. But if you were going to full stack, you include Kyle Farmer at 2K, who probably is in play anyway, just for being 2K at shortstop. And, you know, he's already hit us a couple home runs. So, and then you got Tyler Stevenson, who's catcher eligible, batting cleanup. So there's a lot of tempting stuff because of positions in that order. But just remember that this year so far, you know, Wainwright has been pretty good, and they only have a 3.6 run total. So before you stack away, just Vegas is usually pretty good about this stuff. Just remember that.
Whoa, I had another. Okay, so I just noticed something about the early slate. I have what I thought was going to be the ultimate chalk pairing of Cole and Patrick Corbin. I figured Patrick Corbin would obviously be like 40% owned.
I didn't think he'd be owned.
I thought he's 7% owned here. I don't know, understand what just happened. We'll see what happens. Yeah, I guess I'll get blown up. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
I mean, I prefer the Atlanta side of that game, and he's looked terrible. But again, it's one of those guys who pitches himself into shape, and then all of a sudden you get the 11K strikeout game, and I'm with you. I mean,
how good is this? So in my, I played one line, I played one entry in the 300 there, and this is the one I played one. How good am I? Let's see what happens. I have one hitter against pitcher. I have Albies against Corbin, and Albies had a hit and a stolen base.
Oh my God.
Perfect. And didn't score, so it's perfect.
That's like the dream. You're the perfect start. All right. Sheets, you want to start us off talking about the next game?
Yeah, this is I like this game. This is kind of sick, but I have both of these hitting teams as like top five or so stacks for me, are pretty freaking close in Seattle and LA. I don't know exactly why, how, or who, but as of now, I'm not quite getting to either of these pitchers, and I kind of like it. I kind of like the Angels, Upton, Rendon, Ohtani, Ward, and then I like Seattle here. I guess they're really, really good values for me to show up like this. Trammell, Haniger, Seager, Crawford, Fraley. I'll take another look at this one, but my initial look is that they rate as a pretty good value for me.
So I'll say something about Seattle. I don't think you should ever be, especially as long as Kyle Lewis is out, I don't think anyone should be 5-man stacking them very often on slates that have other options, which there are today. Just because they don't walk, they strike out a ton. It's hard to keep that lineup moving. And I know they've had some games where they've made people some money, but those are usually like that. Yeah, the other guys who were on those winning lineups that had Seattle stacks, there's usually a couple Seattle guys with like a 2 or a 4.
Can I do a 2-man, Trammell and Seager?
Yeah. I mean, like, look, you can play all, like, the thing is, Trammell I actually believe in for the future, but yeah, you can do that. I mean, I would just say if you're going to play anybody, I would lean Kalinick, even though he's sucked, and Seager. Seager definitely stands out for his price. But I could see a mini stack maybe of 3, but I don't think I'm going with more than 3 on this slate. Maybe I can get to 4, but I just am not getting to 5-man stacks. I do like the idea of trying to pick on Canning. I am starting to look further, and even though he's been good, like, he hasn't been nearly as good as some people might think. If he was cheaper, I would be taking shots with him today, to be honest. And I'm trying for the life of me, I can't figure out exactly why the Angels' run total is so high. It's not that Sheffield has been good. He hasn't been. He hasn't been like the worst. I mean, he's gone at least 5. This is the thing. Like, he's gone 5 innings or more in every start he's had. In those games, he's given up 5 runs twice and 4 runs twice, and he's had a couple 2s and and 0s and all that. But I'm not playing Sheffield here. I'm just sort of saying, like, it's weird to think about the Angels as a stack after they've been so bad, and we've been trying to pick on them. Nothing's changed, but Justin Upton and Anthony Rendon stand out as terrific plays individually to me, or together like that. That's what I would be doing in this game. I don't think I'm fully stacking the Angels. I may change my mind because I don't think Sheffield is amazing, but I just think there's better places to go attack fully, where there's real explosive possibilities. Like if Hap I could see getting really blown up. I could see Milwaukee completely going off, and Milwaukee's a similar thing to LA today. I just happen to like, with Yelich back, Milwaukee's lineup a little bit better. And you've got, your two other best hitters in this game are going to be lefties, which are Ohtani and Walsh, and they're really expensive. So I would rather play Rendon, Upton, Taylor, Ward. Those would be the guys I'd be looking at here. People will play Juan Lagares too he's 3.3 now. Never mind. Forget Juan Lagares. It's really those 3 for me, and you can always include Stassi as your catcher. But again, more of a mini stack for me.
you want to move on?
Yeah. So let's talk about Chicago and San Francisco. I actually, okay, so DeScalfani is definitely interesting to me. I'm struggling with this because I wanted this actually, like, for San Francisco wise, as far as hitting weather goes, it's pretty good for San Francisco. Zach Davies hasn't, again, another guy who just doesn't really give up like home runs a ton. He does, walk a few guys. He strikes out very, very few. You've got a pretty good contact team. I kind of like the Giants when they're playing against guys who are hard flamethrowers and stuff like that. Like when you make contact, you make hard. I don't know. It's just the way I sort of think of them. I do think Davies at 6.1. I mean, we have to think about Davies and DeScalfani because they're just both really, really cheap. And it is still San Francisco, even though the weather is a little bit better. But DeScalfani is definitely a guy who I'll be playing tonight.
Yeah, that was going to be my other. I alluded to this earlier when I said, if you want to play the White Sox, what little league pitchers do you have to pitch? And I said Gutierrez, but there's a guy that I'd probably prefer to get to. I feel more comfortable with, and that is DeScalfani. I do like him at 7,100. I think that if your builds are such that you can't play like Lynn and Darvish, for example, I do think that I think that DeScalfani is clearly like the most reliable, cheaper guy. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I as a result, I think people are going to play him just because of what I just said. You know what I mean? So I think that people are going to play, lineups without both those top pitchers in them, and they don't want to play, like you said, Vladimir Gutierrez or whatever it is. I think that DeScalfani naturally should get ownership. He's not getting it right now, though. I mean, my initial look. I mean, it's really early. Or only has him about 10%, whatever.
Yeah.
I would sign on for that. I would sign up for him at 10%.
I think he'll be 30+ % is my guess.
Yeah, he is, right? I would figure. So he definitely makes a lot of sense. And he's, I have him, very legit SP2 if you don't want to double pay up for pitching. I did not get to those again, to any of the bats there, really. But so that's where I'm at, either DeScalfani or, not much.
All right. Yeah. So on the flip side of it, I really like Alex Dickerson. I do like as a one-off or anything. I don't think I'm fully stacking these guys, but I don't mind. Like the Giants are cheap, and we know these guys are pesky. They're missing their best hitter, sure. All they do is win games, and you've got Lamont Wade and Alex Dickerson really cheap. I just think Dickerson stands out. And you could always use Posey. And I think Brandon Crawford, people don't realize that he's actually had quite a bit of power this year. Sort of not really sure where it's coming from, but he's gone through little streaks like this before. It's been 8 games since he had a home run, but he was on a real tear there for a while. I think he hit like 6 in like 9 games or something. So they're viable. Again, a little better hitting weather than usual. Davies, I'm not like afraid of picking on, but I don't want to fully stack against him. So Dickerson, Lamont Wade, potentially Steven Duggar. Actually, Duggar would probably be better than Wade. And depending on where Tauchman bats, and I don't think I'm going to play Tauchman, but I'm just sort of, these are the cheap options. San Francisco definitely makes some sense to me as the cheap.
Just be careful about Alex Dickerson. He's in like full, like, won't let him hit against lefties mode right now.
I'm aware. Yeah. But the thing about Davies, that will sort of the good thing about taking a hitter against a pitcher that tends to get some damage done, but doesn't go but goes deep enough into games, is that you're probably going to see him for at least 3 at bats as a leadoff hitter, maybe 4. So you're not getting the 2 at bats you're getting in some of those games with the Rays where they're playing a team that, you know what I mean, that doesn't have a good starting pitcher. It's not going to go 3 innings or something.
No, I mean, I even realized. I had him Dickerson in a big buy-in the other day, and I needed him to like just to get there for me, and he was like out of the game, like what the hell, and I didn't even realize. And you even look at his game log, he just never gets the at bats.
Yep.
And he even said he only started 2 games against lefties the whole season. They just really, they don't like him against lefties at all. The other thing I want to mention before I forget, I just got looking at my board here. I mistakenly referred to somebody's playing for the wrong team. Gilberto Celestino at 2K. He's on Minnesota, not on the team that I mentioned. I'm just looking at the wrong screen. All right. want to,
Yeah, let's get
didn't
on
like
to it.
any of that. You get Darvish, who's
Yeah.
probably the top pitcher, right?
Yeah.
Well, you could argue it, right? But I think it's Lynn Darvish, Lynn, and if you can get them both, it's obviously ideal. So that's where I'm at, and pretty much it. Taiwan Walker at 10-3 is just not going to happen for me. Even against a team worse than San Diego. And I'm not going to be playing San Diego, I believe, either. So for me, I'm just going to, hopefully that I'm 30 points away from first with Darvish left to go, and then maybe he does it for me. What do you think?
I think on a small slate, there's room. I like Darvish, but I think there's room to get different when a guy's going to be as owned as Darvish is at his price. Yeah. Now, the Mets lineup is weak, obviously, but it's better than it has been with Alonso back. What I'm trying to think, this is another game with really good hitting weather for San Diego. It's just a day where I'm looking at that kind of stuff. So that's why I like Milwaukee, because it's not, there's some games that are big decreases. This is one of the better ones. And when it's warm in San Diego, the ball can carry. So I'm looking, I wanted to try and find a way to take somebody against Taiwan, or some people against both Walker and Darvish even, where I'm not playing them. Darvish actually would be the more logical guy to take bats against. And I'll explain really quickly. Just the way Taiwan Walker pitches, like, he's done an incredible job of almost no hard contact. Not just he's given up one home run all year and he's pitched a lot of innings, and he's given up only minimal doubles, minimal extra base hits. He's not getting hit hard. Darvish will make mistakes over the plate, and he's a great pitcher. But if you're not playing him, this is a perfect kind of example of a guy you'd like to try and take a completely unowned, whether it be Lindor, Alonso, Dominic Smith, potentially Kevin Pillar. Those guys would maybe not Pillar, maybe stop at Smith, but any of those guys as one-offs, I think is just a good way to get different in your sort of what I did in the early slate. I took the one-offs against or the little one or two offs against Cole, where I wasn't pitching Cole.
Right.
That's what I think you should be doing on slates like this, because these guys are going to be 0% owned. And again, Darvish will give up a home run in at least half the games he starts, and then there's the bullpen behind him, which is actually a good bullpen. But I'm just saying, likely still this team still has a fairly decent chance of someone hitting a home run. If you get that guy right and no one else has him, and the position kind of duds, it's just a small enough slate where you should be considering maybe doing that with, if you're playing a 2 chalky Twins lineup or something like that. Maybe you play your first baseman as Alonso and skip the Twins first baseman or something like that. Anyway, that's just sort of a game theory thing. But
did you take a look at Fanduel at all for pitching?
I'll take a look in a second. I just want to mention one more thing. I do think that while I don't want to pick on Taiwan Walker or for any reason, that any day is okay to play any of these guys from San Diego. The guys who I would look at are Myers, Pham, Machado, and that's probably it. But again, sort of a similar thing. Nobody's going to play them, even though they're not playing Walker. So just keep those guys in mind as one-offs, Mets one-offs and Padres one-offs. I'm putting as not a priority, but something I want to try to get into some lineups if I can find a way to do it.
Yeah, I don't think Pham is going to play. Maybe. I mean, he look at this. He had stitches under his chin, and we'll do a CT scan for a jaw injury from the game yesterday. I you know what I mean. I don't see any reason to have him play. But.
Yeah, well, I mean, Taiwan Walker's too expensive, but all this stuff is with an Tatis already. It all makes you kind of want to play him, but it's I don't think you can do it over here. But let's jump over to FanDuel actually, because we got some time. Do you mind actually pulling up a FanDuel screen? A couple of people have asked us to do it, and I think it's a nice way we could start slowing into it, and maybe I'll do some special FanDuel shows some days.
Yeah, sure.
So on the let's see, on the main slate, the lineups came in on the late.
For me, it was just Lynn and Darvish. I mean, I didn't really feel it, so you needed to pay down. I couldn't really separate the two of them on FanDuel when I first looked at it. I mean, you want to try stuff like Canning or Tyler Anderson or whatever. I just don't think you need it today. So for me, it was just Lynn or Darvish.
Yeah. Hold on. I hit the wrong slate on my thing here. I would tend to agree that those would be the, look, that's the optimal thing to do. I can't currently find a pivot around it that I feel like makes enough sense, because on FanDuel you really just don't need the money as much in general. And I do think that I will take some time. You know what? I would take some Taiwan Walker and DeScalfani shots.
Huh.
Taiwan Walker at 8K is completely reasonable if you can get an extra 3 bats in that you want to get, that Darvish and Lynn at their prices don't afford you. Now you can get most of the bats you want in, but that is really interesting, like to try and get a little different, because I don't think Walker outscores these guys very much here. I think he could be, within whatever, 1 inning and a strikeout of them. And I think DeScalfani has a similar type of upside at a cheaper price to be just beneath one of Lynn or Darvish, whichever one probably pitches better, probably Darvish. I'm surprised people are playing Lynn's projections for ownership is so high over here. I would have thought that he would be like, I just thought it would be like 80% Darvish, 10% everybody else, or 10% Lynn, and then 10% for the rest of the people. But I do think Walker and DeScalfani at no ownership are kind of interesting to me.
And hitting Milwaukee's still good. I mean, over here,
yeah,
you could be a little funky, and you could play double first base with Narvaez and Vogelbach. That could be a little different, I guess. And then you could afford Yelich if you do that. What else do I like over here? I like the Angels, I guess. Rendon's creeping up at 3,300, I suppose. KC. What is Merrifield over here? He's probably usually 3,200. I mean, you could play Lynn and Darvish, and I would say whoever you want. But like here, you have you could probably play these White Sox too.
Yeah, you could. It's easy. It's easier against the White Sox over on FanDuel, like really easy. But the one thing.
Then again, Bray is 4,200. That's healthy.
Yeah. But in general, I mean, that's what he should be.
Tim Anderson's only 3,600.
But the just be aware, like everything we said about Minnesota is going to be more true over here. And then guys like Anthony Rendon are just going to be 1,000,000% owned on FanDuel. Just keep that. And I love Rendon today, but you can play Hunter Dozier at 2.2K versus Happ in that game we like. And I just put him in as an outfielder, Dozier. That's fine. Yeah, it's good. I'm just looking at I actually wasn't even looking at your sheet for a second, but I was just looking at Rendon's ownership projections, and I actually think it makes sense, but it's way too high for me to take a hitters like that. This is baseball. You know what I mean? Like I can't count on 2 home. Even if he hits one, somebody else probably hits one from the position as well. Like give me an unowned Manny Machado over Rendon, even in a bad matchup. I think it's worth it, like that kind of shot, or play Kyle Seager, play Hunter Dozier. All those guys are, you could use there just as likely. And because Rendon and Donaldson will probably take out about 60 to 70% of the ownership here. That sounds crazy, but that's really what it's going to be. It's going to be massively owned. And I wouldn't be surprised if most people put them in lineups together.
Huh.
That's what they're going to, because they stand out as being such good plays. Yeah. So everything but I still think the Twins have a decent shot at having a great night. So I'm not saying I won't have a twin or two. I mentioned the cheap ones I like. But just remember this chalk is like on these slates, it's uncomfortable.
I think it'd be so easy. I mean, it's not going too far to say, just baseball hitting chalk is just bad. It just is. Just the way results distribute in baseball. It's just,
yeah. I
shouldn't say chalk is bad, but like exceeding chalk. You know what I mean? Like if you have like a 30% owned like hitter, like for example, unless it's like literally like a 3-game slate, I mean, it's very difficult to justify that in a GPP.
Right. Agreed. So I've got I'll real quick go through my favorite play, and they pretty much translate to both sides. But on FanDuel, I'll just say Walker and DeScalfani are interesting pivots off of the chalky pitchers, because they both can go 6 innings and get a quality start here and potentially get the win. Hopefully, get the win. That's enough of a reason. It's harder for Walker to get the win. That's the one thing that he's got going against him. But again, unowned and really a talented enough pitcher to get there. on DraftKings, it's going to be mostly Darvish, DeScalfani, and Lynn for me. I'm going to mix in, if I want to stack the White Sox over there at a no ownership, I'm going to have to mix in a Bubic, a Gutierrez, a Davies, something like that. So just, I have to keep that in mind. My favorite one-offs that I came throughout this, like Yelich, Colton Wong, Garcia, all from that game, and I like that game. Jeffers, Merrifield, Olivares, Goldschmidt, Naquin, Upton, Rendon, Dickerson, Seager. Those are the guys I like as one-offs. My favorite stacks are going to be the Royals, the White Sox, it'll be mixes of mini with those teams, mini Seattle, mini Angels, because everyone's going to fully stack the Angels. So even that I might even stay away from. Angels and Twins are just going to dominate ownership on this slate, I think. So I would say that, and then the Twins, have a couple guys who you're going to be using. And then I like the Giants and Cubs mini stacks, but especially the Giants. So those are the guys I'd be looking at, starting with Dickerson and the other cheapos from the Giants outfield.
And was this specific to Fanduel or just both?
That was both. I sort of crossing over as I was talking about it.
So I may as well just specify a little bit. So on actually it's the same for me on Fanduel and DraftKings. Like for me right now, Milwaukee is like stands out for me as the top play on both sites. On Fanduel, I would add in my second tier, I still KC, Arizona, Seattle, and then I think as usual on Fanduel, Miami is a secondary stack that I wouldn't mind over there. I have the Angels like kind of down the list. So if they're going to be like really, really popular on FanDuel, I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem fading that. Back to DraftKings for a second, as I mentioned, Milwaukee and then Arizona, Seattle, and then I mentioned Kansas City, the Angels, and the one kind of hoodoo. The two kind of hoodoos over there were Cincinnati, who I mentioned, and Pittsburgh. And the good thing about Pittsburgh, by the way, is that and I kind of like you, whenever you like kind of can get to a stack where you have a catcher that it's kind of taken care of. You know what I mean? Like that could be part of your stack. I think it helps. So I always like Jacob Stallings as a play. So I wouldn't mind maybe a little Pittsburgh again, but I think that for me, Pittsburgh will be the 20 max. You know what I mean? Like that it'll take me that to get to them.
Yeah, but, maybe you don't do a full 5-man on them or something.
Right,
maybe
right.
4 or 3. You can include Brian Reynolds or Gregory Polanco. Really cheap.
Yeah, although I will say that as a one-off, just as we were going to rank these guys also, I think that Polanco rates really, really strongly at only 2,600.
Yeah, I think that's a really good play.
And other guys that you want to go through some one-offs, I'll do like 10. You can do 10. Some of these names you've heard before in my discussions of other things, but Vogel in order: Vogelbach, Jake Fraley from Seattle, Polanco, that Celestino guy from Minnesota is cheap. Back to Jeffers again at 2K. Upton, whom you mentioned before, at 3,500, and I'll throw in. You already mentioned Hunter Dozier and Bradley. I'll throw Bradley also. So, but the usual guys I discussed in my value stacks, I guess. Yeah,
fair enough. It's a small slate when we're talking about the Pirates. But I kind of like it too. I also always want to pick on Miami, and not that Eliza Hernandez isn't going to be so bad. I don't expect him to pitch very long today. But I kind of like that idea, the Pittsburgh idea. So I don't mind getting behind it on a slate with very concentrated chalk where they'll be completely unknown, especially the guy you mentioned in Nottingham at 4.7. I don't see anyone doing that. So I think that that's kind of an interesting way to go. All right. We got some basketball we're going to do for you guys. So we're going to get out of here. For Sheets, I'm Bobby saying good luck to everyone tonight, and we'll see you at the top of the leaderboard.